Hey, this is Gerd Handel, and welcome to the Inner Light Project. This show is for anyone who's wanting to lead a happier, healthier, and enlightened life. Create more self-love, inject more joy and abundance into their daily life. Join me for inspiring interviews and spiritual topics so you can shine your inner light. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Inner Light Project. My name is Gerd Handel and today I am so excited to share this guest with you. She is an amazing soul and has so much wisdom to share with us today. She is helping highly sensitive, creative women unmask their good girl energy. Now, this is something I've wanted to talk about for a long time because the good girl energy lives within all of us, whether we realize it or not. It starts from such a young age, and a lot of us have been dealing with the good girl energy our entire life. Now, Beth Clayton is a somatic mentor, ceremonialist, and guide who helps women to expand their vision and reclaim their full capacity of their bodies, intuitive gifts, and inner authority. She believes we can all create ownership of our own lives. Hi Beth, I'm so grateful to have you on this show and just for you being here today. Like it's an honor because we have got to know each other through a group setting, which from day one we just had this intense conversation, I remember. And I was like, I get her, but I don't want to tell her yet, but I get her. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Gerds. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
You're so
I agree.
welcome.
I agree. We went deep fast, for sure.
By the way, for anyone who's listening, we literally met within, I think, 2 minutes and we were sat in this van and within 5 minutes we were talking about life, death, rebirth, animals, plants. I was like,
As
wow.
we do.
And
We do.
and I'd come off a flight, I think a 16-hour flight, and I was like, wow, we are going there today. Like, I'm loving this. But I've got to stay awake.
You must have felt very psychedelic in nature, being as exhausted as you were to be in that van in Mexico talking about, ancestors and psychedelic journeys and healing and the patriarchy and all the things that within just, 30 seconds we were off to the races.
But it felt so right. That was the beauty of it. It felt so right. It's like I knew you before. And that is why I was like, we have to get you on the show today. And I really want to go back to your journey. So what was your life like before you became a somatic mentor?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, I've been a coach for the past 16 years. So I've been leading women through different thresholds in their lives, leading them through their relationship with their body and food, and then leading them more into like soul-based life coaching. And then that evolved into somatic work and more work through the body. And then that evolved into becoming a temple guide and sacred feminine work, and then that evolved into new work coming through me. So before that, though, I was a performer. I was a performer for probably about. I mean, I was a performer for my whole life from the time I was a young kid in training, but I was like a professional performer for 10 years, a theatrical performer, and so that I did a lot of regional theater. I got my MFA in acting. I did some theater in New York. And it's really crazy to see the full circle of what I do now and what I was doing then are so connected because I am very much a storyteller. I'm very much like when I am leading, I am in like a field and an electricity and with something coming through that feels very similar to what I experienced as a performer. So like different roles, but a similar, I think, archetypal role that I am holding. So it's been wild to see how it's come full circle and I get to bring all of me, into what I'm doing now.
I love that. And that's what I love about these kind of situations because like even with me, I was a journalist. Like how the fuck did I end up in doing what I do now?
Yeah.
Right. But it makes sense because
Yeah.
again, it's communication, it's asking questions, it's analyzing things, it's seeing things that most people don't see. And that's what I do with my clients. But the journey to get there, which I think is the most beautiful thing, like it was like you weren't looking for this, you were being led,
Yeah.
which I think is quite
Yeah.
powerful.
I think we always like from frame of reference we currently have, from whatever state of consciousness we are in, what we even know is available to us, we're always doing the best to kind of meet our authentic needs. And depending on what we have been introduced to or what we see as a potential path for us, we're going to start with like the closest thing we can find. But I have found on this journey, like for me, that was performing. That filled so many of the but it also didn't meet me in certain ways. And it also was the perfect place for all my wounding to go. You know what I mean? Like the perfect place for all my shiz to come up as well. And I'm not a performer now in that way, but I am a speaker. I am like, there's so many similarities. And I can see the same for you. If you get to use all the skills that you've ever acquired on these paths, it's just you get to open to more now, more depth, more height in what's available to you, more
Oh,
authenticity.
100%. Like I now realize that I thought I had a voice in the journalism world, but I didn't have a voice. So actually, when I
Mm,
left, I had to learn how to find my voice. But that was the starting point to make me think I had one, which I didn't feel growing up.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the same thing for me because it was like there were certain needs that were met by being on stage. There were certain aspects of it that very much were about like me being in my element,
Mhm.
being in who I'm meant to be and how, and then there was a piece of it that gave me just the right heroin hit for what was missing in my own attachment system, and so it's like, that's kind of how it goes. Like it all, like there's always like, it's not ever one thing. I think it's always a yes and.
Yeah. So I want to just ask you, so what was the defining point for you to leave the theatre world? Like, what was it that made you go, I'm
Mm,
done, I'm ready to start afresh?
mm. It wasn't easy. It was the decision, strangely enough, to have a family and to get married. I think I couldn't really see past what I had been working toward my entire life, which was it was sort of like a Hail Mary vision. Like it was like, okay, like I'm just going to pray and hope, even though I don't have that many examples around me of performers who are able to have families and support them. I am going to just like hope I get famous and hope I get all these commercials and hope these things come into alignment. And that didn't really wind up happening. I was paid a lot in soul dollars. I loved what I got to do.
Wow.
They were formative, especially with theater artists. Like you can be doing the highest art theater you've ever done in your whole life and be paid $200 a week, like absolutely.
Wow.
And it's almost like sometimes the better the art, the less you're paid. It's almost like you get paid by like, you get to have this experience. So, you get to be surrounded by this like incredible director, this incredible cast. And so you're doing it for almost
Wow.
nothing. I mean, people I've seen who exploded in huge shows, like right before that, they were doing theater for $150, $200 a week in the
Wow.
village. So like there's all this like soul dollars you get paid in. It's so beautiful in so many ways being a performing artist, but it certainly does not pay
Mm.
enough to have a family. And I'd been with my husband forever and had also been a performer and moved on to a different career.
Wow.
And I was in this space of really seeing the writing on the wall, but also wanting to stay in it. Like it's sort of like life was like you have to choose. And I know there's many people who are able to do both. For me, it felt like I had to choose. And I at first didn't make a choice not, to become a coach, but I started with just like, well, then I need to find something on the side. I need to find something on the side because this is too inconsistent. And I'm sick of jumping from nanny job to nanny job to waiting job to waiting job,
Wow.
disappointing families when I have to leave town last minute. I'm so done with this, never having health insurance, never have like jumping from being on unemployment. It was just too much. There was no stability. And so I started I find life has this really funny way of just meeting us in exactly the right moment. I remember like literally at the time coaching was not a thing. Like when I started coaching was not a thing. It was like, it was like a thing, actually Nisha and I went to the same, like we both went to Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which I think for a lot of
Wow.
people was like the opening, like coaching program, even though it was a health coaching program. It like was one of the first of its kind that was like really opening people to this understanding of it being a path you could go down and actually really make money with and why it was so needed. So it was sort of revolutionary at the time. And that's what opened me up to coaching. But and it helped me heal my relationship with my body, which at the time was such a huge thing for me. So I was like, yes, I have this. I like basically was like, all right, life, drop a breadcrumb in my lap. And I don't know if this was like on Facebook or what it was back in the day, or MySpace, or who knows what it was. But like I saw an advertisement for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It was like a health coach. You could be a health coach. And I was like, I mean, I don't eat very healthily and I have a ton of disordered eating. So that sounds great. I think I should become a health coach. And so I did start to heal my relationship with food and my body and how I nurtured myself during that time. And I worked with a ton of performers with their body image stuff. And then it evolved into food and body freedom. So once that started taking off, I did have a moment where I was like, I'm still trying to straddle two worlds. Like I was like doing shows and then also health coaching on, in tech on my off hours.
Wow.
And it just was becoming too much. And I remember going, I have to start putting my energy like in one place. And it became clear that that meant I needed to release from performing. And so I remember turning down a gig that day when I made the decision. It's almost like right after that, the universe was like, are you sure? I'd like made the decision that I was going to go all in with coaching. And I think I'd even hired a coach, which at the time was a big deal for me to, pay whatever it was, that $300 a month for a coach at the time was like a huge decision, a business coach. And I wound up getting an email right after I had decided to let go of my agents and let go of my manager and all the things. And it was with a director I loved working with, and it was for almost no money. But I loved the job. I mean, I was like, I had already played the role and I was about to play the role again. And it was
Wow.
someone who was an addict and who had been through a lot of trauma. And I was like, okay. And I said yes. And then I emailed him right back and said, I can't. And I sent the email, and then I just cried on the bed for probably like, an hour. But I find in my life, the way it's always worked out is when you make those sorts of decisions, life responds very quickly. And I think it was within a year from that I got a TEDx. I wound up getting a huge windfall of clients from a gym that I had been working with. Just basically was like, we want you to do a program here. And I wound up working with like 34 people at a time instead of like, it was crazy. And it was like, there was this whole world I was open to of people just flooding in, and my business completely took off after that. But there was this part of me that got discarded along the way. Like I was like, I'm no longer a performer. I'm a coach now. And I don't think I could have named it at the time, but that severing was painful in a way that was about, like, because I didn't need to drop that part of, I think I thought I had to drop that part of myself.
Yeah.
And she's starting to really come back now in a way that like my poet is coming back, my performer is coming back. I'm an embodiment teacher, but like that journey just brought a part of me back online that I think I lost when I made that decision.
Yeah.
Because when I was a performer, the closest I ever felt to heaven was on stage. And now I can feel that whenever I fucking want, and I can conjure that experience for myself. I have it at beck and call now, as opposed to being reliant on someone else handing me the ability to feel that way.
I 100% relate with what you're saying because, I never thought I would leave the journalism world, but I had to, like, a lot of the drinking would happen in the journalism world. Like, I used to drink. I'm 13 years sober now. So I remember just saying, I need to let go of this world. And people were like, are you crazy? You started from the age of 15. You've got 2 degrees in this. You've worked in the industry. And I was like,
Yeah.
my soul needs to let this go. But I kind of like you said, I think in those times, so we're talking like 2012, 2013, we were grieving a world that meant like didn't exist. Like, a lot of us didn't know how to combine what we did then with what we do now. It was like
Yeah.
literally we had to cut it off and start again. So it was almost like we
Yeah.
mourned a whole lifetime of work that we had done. to get to
Yeah.
that point. And I was the same. I mourned for about a year. I was like, oh my God, I've let go of this career. And then I was still freelancing in the media world. I was like, I need to still do it because I love it. You know, I love the health journalism. Like I love it all.
Yeah.
But then I just randomly, I remember someone was like, hey, do you want to work with young people? I was like, okay. I did not know that I would end up teaching young people how to produce documentaries, that I would be healing my inner child,
Yeah.
which led on that journey. I didn't know then that, hey, I was sat in the library and a book fell off and it said coaching. Everywhere I kept going, it said coaching, coaching. I'm like, oh, well, I already help people. So, like, I was the same. Like, I didn't plan on being a coach. And, like, the first time I
Yeah.
became a coach, it was purpose. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what the hell? So
Yeah.
it's so interesting. And I think like yourself, for years, like I kept that journalism world away. But then I was like, no, I need to keep it alive. And it's part of who I am. And that's where I had a radio show many years ago. I let go of that. And but we did a lot of holistic things on there. But then I wanted to be in control of it. So that's when the podcast came. So that's why
Yeah.
I kept the podcast because I'm like, it reminds me of that old world, but also it's a part of my identity from before, but it's the identity now of who I've become with it. So it's so
Yeah.
interesting when you bring it back because it always feels like it's missing, like you said. Like I missed it so much, and I can see your performative energy. Like I saw it in the, at the retreat. Like I was like, wow, like, you were just being in your energy. And I was like, I love this about who you are because it's part of
Mm,
who you are and your belonging and your essence, and it can never
mm.
really go.
Yeah. It's been a part of who I am since I was very, very young. And I love what you're talking about with just the natural evolution of things. And when we can continue to really listen to ourselves and the next step that's beckoning us, we will have a moment where we will see it all. We will see how it all comes together full circle, but it doesn't always feel that way. Like many things, when you are in it, it feels the opposite. It feels a lot of times like confusion and grief and like you have to make extremely difficult binary choices, and a lot of times we will see in hindsight how it was perfectly we can choose to see it as being perfectly designed for who we have become. And that's the way I'm able to see it now. And I could try to remind myself to keep seeing it that way when I am in the feels of it. And I cannot see it from that larger perspective yet because, yeah.
Yeah, and there's something that we want to talk about now that it's linked to what we're talking about. We both had this good girl energy, and I feel like theatre was like you being out of that good girl energy, and also for me being in the
Mm,
media it was like being out of that good girl energy.
mm.
Why do you think like so many women struggle with letting go of the good girl?
That's an excellent, well, first of all, your point there is really excellent because I do think we find ways to try to play with other energies in ways that feel safer than doing it relationally and in our so there's like ways we meet the needs for the other parts of us,
Yeah.
but a lot of times we then become addicted to it only being in those containers, right? Or because we really believe that's the only way I'm going to be able to for example, the only way I'm going to be able to really experiment with my sexuality is to play this role, right? Or the
Mm.
only way I'm ever really going to get to go to my rage, right, is if I am able to be in this role. And I would always lean towards the most intense motherfucking roles. You got like I was always like the one who had just been abused, coming
Oh,
back to confront her abuser, right?
wow.
Or like the one who's basically like, in like the most intense situations you could imagine. So I'm sure I was playing with something there that had to do with like the underlayers of intensity that I didn't feel
Mm.
the permission to experience in my everyday life because it was just too much. It felt like it was just too much for people. So it gave me an outlet. It gave me an outlet. And I think a lot of us find ways to find our outlets, but yet the good girl is still really showing up in how we are being within those outlets and how we are navigating those outlets. And then also in our everyday lives outside of those outlets.
Yeah.
I think it's the good girl, as I think about the good girl. Some people think of it as a fawning, shrinking energy.
Mm.
That's not how I think of the good girl. That is one way that she can present. But to me, the good girl lives in all of us and has for many millennia, and has lived in generational trauma through millennia. It didn't always look like it looks now, as we know. And the dawn of patriarchy goes back, between 3,000 and 5,000 years and is spread across the globe. So we might have aspects of our lineage that is more untamed and still lives in us. But for most of us, we were raised in a patriarchal overculture. So we were raised as the patriarchal daughter. We were raised to defer to patriarchal power. And we learned that that's just the way things are. We learned not to question it, that this is just the way of things. And that the way of things is very traumatic for the human body, both men and women and non-binary folks. It's traumatic for everyone. But when we look at how it shows up in more of a cis, a cis woman way, there's going to be an anatomy if you are raised in a patriarchal overculture in that role. And we learn it early. And so it is so deeply ingrained from 0 to 7 that there's no way that anyone we know does not have a good girl, the anatomy of the good girl in her, that defers to a male god. The feminine is completely out of the equation, is a secondary character in, so there's all these different subtle ways in which we are indoctrinated very early into trying to be good, trying to prove ourselves, and trying to transcend the body, when, as we know, the feminine journey is actually about going deeper into the body. So all of us are so deeply conditioned, whether we like to believe we are or not, even when we're breaking free of it, even when we're leaders, even when we are matriarchal leaders, we are still deeply conditioned, right? And so it's a constant questioning and a constant healing. I will say that the anatomy of the good girl to me is about just the understanding that we all have one, and how it looks in our system is going to be very unique to our specific nervous system, our specific upbringing, our communities when we were younger, how, and the formation of our family unit. And so for me, the good girl looks very different than it might look for you.
Yeah.
But and that's why I have, I think, 12 different archetypes of the good girl protectors. So it's not just one, it's 12 that I work with in women and that I've witnessed and that I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't remember what the initial question was, but there we go.
It's just like, why are women struggling to let go of the good girl? Like, I know for me personally, it was because the narratives like we grew up with, the TV programs, everything, our cultural, society, familial, like all of it was conditioning me from a young age without me knowing. But I was always curious. I was always like, why? But why? But then, okay, I must follow this rule because then I'll be praised for it. So like, I do remember from a young age, like if I followed the rules, like it was like, yes. But then the rebellion with me would question things. So like, I've always been a bit of a good girl / rebellion, like, but it was a battle.
There can be multiple parts of us. There can be absolutely multiple parts of us. And I think what's important to name that doesn't get named enough is that this anatomy lives in our nervous system first. It's not it's not something that is about cognitive awareness around your conditioning. Yes, that is actually very important to be unpacking constantly of, oh shit, I'm doing it there. I need to take a look at this. But first and foremost, what needs healing is safety in the body first. It's a somatic, the good girl lives somatically.
Oh, wow.
And so you can have all the dismantling of your mental conditioning. You could have unpacked everything and put it on a bed, and your body is still in relationship in a different way, right? So you can be a rebel and your body can still be like shrinking and disappearing and running away and avoiding or fighting unnecessary battles. Like, it can still be she. Actually, I say she for my body. I use pronouns. This is one of the first things in embodiment training we learned is like, find a pronoun that fits your body. Stop calling your body an it.
Oh, wow.
Your body is a sentient being with their own intelligence.
God.
And I was like, that was game changing for me because I still think I was, even though I'd done food and body freedom work for many years, and even though I knew that we are supposed to relate to our body as a being, I was still relating to it as an it. And I mean, I don't even call my
Wow.
dog an it. I call my dogs have, you know what I mean? Like my dogs have pronouns. Like I, I relate to a lot of different things with pronouns, or at
Yeah.
least I relate to them with a there, like I can find that there's, even if there's not a masculine or feminine, right, that we can
Yeah.
find a pronoun within there that is fitting for them being honored and related to
Mm.
as having consciousness in some way. Right. So anyway, yeah, that's a
It's,
tangent.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating how you're, no, but you're right, because I don't think I've ever named her she, even though I know she's a she, it's just my body. But I never questioned
Mm-hmm.
why I called it and not she. But actually, when we talk to our bodies and we, have this conversation with her, she feels so at ease. And I do know that when I talk to my body, I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
body again. But again, nobody taught us that growing up. It was like, nope, follow the rules, do this, do that. But there was one thing
Or
I was,
push past your body, or like your body's just it's mind over matter. It's all of those things that we learn. Yeah.
yeah, it's wild, isn't it? When you start to unpack the layers of where it happened and then you
Mm-hmm.
start to really set yourself free. And that's one thing I want to talk to you about. Like, obviously, you start to peel off the layers, but why are women still struggling with that intuition?
I think I don't think women are necessarily struggling. I mean, who knows? I know I had a story that I was not very connected
Hmm.
to my intuition. And that's what I hear a lot from women is I'm not very connected to that part of myself. And to me, when a woman feels safe in her body, she's usually very connected to information coming through. When she does not feel safe in her own body, it's very difficult to listen to the deepest truth around what's going on because there's so much activation and survival energy running through her system. There's so much noise. So it's not that women need to work on their intuition, it's that they need to learn how to clear the static
Hmm.
um, in their own system. And a lot of that is learning how to come back to the body as the first step. And how to work with the activation energy that is surfacing in their body in real time. Regulate it away, but to discern what that energy is trying to share with them.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of times we think it's about making it go away, as if our activation is a bad thing. Activation's a sign of a very healthy nervous system. If we did not have activation, we would not likely be surviving very well. We probably wouldn't be here. It keeps us here.
Yeah. I know for me, intuition is it's because what, and I've seen with my clients is because they spent years being told what to do again. So it's like the good girl, like you had to follow rules and regulations.
Mm,
Of course, she didn't know how to trust herself. But also, if her
yeah.
mum didn't know how to trust herself, of course she wouldn't know how to trust herself. So it goes
Yep.
generations back. But women intuitively, like you said, it's number one, the body. Number two, they were never given the like autonomy to make their own decisions. And number three was also that no one ever asked for their opinion. Like it was always like
Yeah.
they would tell us what to do versus what we, we
It's like a
we should.
learned helplessness, like a learned, like, we don't learn how to listen and orient to that first. We learn how to look outward instead of tracking
Yeah.
ourselves. Um, I remember I have this incredible teacher for intuitive work. Shout out to Raquel Cohen, who really taught me that the way we increase our connection to the intuitive channel and the information coming through, and of course, we know there's lots of different clair abilities, and you can start to figure out which your predominant clair abilities are. I've known for a while that mine is claircognizance. Like I just know, like there's just information that comes through and it comes through like in my womb. And I just know it's my womb and my solar plexus and it's just there and I can just trust it. But everyone has different abilities. And I was working with her on more of my clairvoyance,
Yeah.
and I was having trouble trusting that channel because I wasn't used to information coming through that channel for me. And one of the things she helped me learn is that we learn through the trusting, even when we're wrong.
Hmm.
Like, and that's something that I've worked on a lot with women in their journeys too, is like self-trust is not always getting it right or always being totally on point. That is not what self-trust is. It's trusting that you know enough and that you are going to find your way back if you get off track. The way we get really good at something like, intuitive readings, for example, is by being wrong and being okay with being wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and still continuing on and continuing to trust ourselves and not making it mean, because it's like, yeah, if we're getting 70% of it, great. You know what I mean? Like if 70% is on point, awesome. It's not a test. You know what I mean? It's like, of course. But we learn to trust ourselves by deciding we trust ourselves no matter what, even if we were off base,
Yeah, that's so
even if we didn't
interesting.
get what we wanted.
And I guess we're always wanting to be like, in school, get the answer right, make sure we get the good grade. So of course, like when we make a mistake, we were always shunned upon. So I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's like we're constantly like afraid of making a mistake, which is why we then don't trust it. Like you're saying, but it's okay to make a mistake. That's what you're saying. Like it's okay because it will get stronger and stronger with time.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you're naming is really important, which is in a patriarchal overculture, the whole point is obedience. It's not
Yeah.
exploration. So, a lot of times in the educational environments we enter, even our family units, like there was a certain standard in order to be accepted, in order to get
Mm.
approval, in order to be significant. And if you don't fit that standard, then you are failing. And there's like, that's very painful from a belonging
Yeah.
perspective. But what you're naming is important because in a lot of those environments, like safety for someone to creatively explore their world is not the priority. The priority is being indoctrinated into a system. And I'm not
Mm.
saying education is bad by any, I'm not going there. I'm not going to like, don't trust education. Like my children are both in public school and I love their teachers, and that's not what I mean. But typically, especially if we look at our generation or our parents' generation, it wasn't about like education in terms of training the mind to be really curious and explore different things, which we need a safe environment to do. It was about
Mm.
memorizing these systems,
Yeah.
um, and being threatened through lack of belonging, that if you didn't get it right, you'd be falling behind. So you'd figure it out from fear. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I mean that's a huge part of it. And then there's also the perfectionism. Most of us do not have a relationship with ourselves where even, and I still notice this in myself, where we feel safe failing, especially in
Yeah.
front of other people. It's still
Mm.
hard for me.
Yeah.
Especially after we've earned a certain amount of cred. You know what I mean? It's like I can't fail in front of anybody because I've already
Yeah.
been positioned here. And then if I fail, everyone's going to laugh at me. It's everyone is so afraid of being humiliated.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's so
really, we're
interesting.
just afraid of what it feels like in our body in that moment. That's it.
And nobody's going to shame us. That's the key. The right people around you will not shame you, they'll hold you. That's what we're missing as well, isn't it? Being held in that safety when things don't go our way or things are not working out or something goes wrong. It's like being held by women and other people, just making you feel seen, heard, and understood. And like, it's okay to make a mistake. It's fine. But a lot of the time we didn't have that growing up. It was like, oh my God, you did this, and why weren't you perfect? And yuck.
I think it's one of the biggest fears of the women. Like, if we're looking at, there's so many different layers to this, but one of the biggest fears I hear from women, especially women who are doing work in the world that is disruptive or where they are trying to be in healing allyship roles or thought leadership roles or have disruptive work artistically coming through, all of these different things, is I'm going to be called out, I'm going to be
Mm.
humiliated, I'm going to be shamed, I'm going to be canceled. But it's a big fear of so many women, and why they stay smaller than they need to is as soon as I am more visible,
Yeah.
that's when they come for me. That's where I
Yeah.
have to be perfect essence. I can't be a human making mistakes. I can't be a human and like, so I try to work with that in being as transparent as I can in my process and being in repair when I feel like I'm in a constant check in around my own integrity. And I've learned, I think, through my own process, and I feel safe enough to be in repair processes now and see them as incredibly valuable and recognize they're going to be a part of my everyday world for a long time now. And that's the way is if I can be safe in repair, that's the antidote
Mm.
Because a lot of times why women wind up experiencing that canceling is because they're not safe in repair. They don't know
Yeah.
how to do that. And when
Hmm.
people can't genuinely get ahead of it and own their own mistakes and allow themselves to be imperfect and humbled and human, then they will try to hide it. And that's where the canceling winds up coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you're saying that because you've reminded me of, do you remember there was, I've forgotten her name, but Bill Clinton when he had the affair, and I've
Mm-hmm.
forgotten her name, but she was only like, I
Monica
think,
Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky, yeah. Like, I never thought about how bad it was back because I was really young when it happened. But like, he was seen as like nothing wrong with him, but with her, everything was blamed on her. But she was, I think, 18 or 19 years old. And I look back and think, what the
It's
fuck?
repulsive. It's repulsive. And at
Yeah.
the time I was young too. So I was just like, oh, how scandalous, right? I was a kid. And now as an adult, understanding what I know, it's repulsive.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
repulsive. I that it's repulsive. That's
Yeah.
I'm how she was treated
Yeah. Yeah.
and just the glee with which people were willing to jump on top of this kid and basically call her, a slutty pig, and for her to lose all cred that she had worked on
Yeah.
in her entire life. And who knows, like, okay, who knows what power dynamics were in play in that situation with the president of the United States. Power dynamics and holding authority in certain situations,
Yeah.
it's just starting to be discussed.
Yeah.
And power dynamics in every space are incredibly important around consent and understanding that not everyone has the ability to say no without losing,
Mm. Yeah.
without sacrificing, and massively.
Yeah.
So yeah, and women aren't protected. How even if she had named something, do you think anyone would have listened to her?
No.
So yeah, I look back on that too. And I'm glad she has a podcast now. I'm
That's
sure
what I
you've
was gonna
seen, and
say.
like she's doing,
Yeah.
I think, really cool work. And I'm
Yeah.
like, good for fucking her. I mean,
I
like,
know.
yeah.
Like I remember watching, I don't know if you saw the YouTube video of her sharing her story. I was like, oh my God, I never really thought about it because we were so young. I never questioned it because like, oh,
Yeah.
this happened. Oh, shock. But when I think about how old he was and her, I'm like, oh my God, like why the hell were we making her the villain when actually the villain was right in front of us all along?
Well,
You
that's the
know?
whole thing, right? Is
Yeah.
people are so much harder on women than they are. They just expect that from men. That's just the way men are. It's, like the free pass that comes from that's just the way they are.
Damn
Um,
it.
I think there's also like when there's been enough generational trauma
Hmm.
with women. I was talking about this with my mother because she was sharing a little bit about my grandmother's generation. And she was like, Beth, I mean, you would be just horrified at the way at the way women viewed other women.
Wow.
Like not my problem. Like not my problem because
What?
there's just because like everyone's problems were considered their own, like people already had their own trauma, like so much of their own trauma.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of time to consider if other women were okay.
Hmm.
There was like it was like self-preservation.
Yeah.
um and like you just didn't question it. Like there was just so much there's so much my grandmother went through that nobody said anything about.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that she would have witnessed and wouldn't have said,
Wow.
wouldn't have named for other people either. And not that she didn't have friends and not, but there's like a different, like, what is it I'm trying to say? Now there is this, we're awakening,
Yeah.
I think, to a different level of connection and empathy with other women's experiences that maybe was not available in those generations because of what was still heavily occurring and legal in those generations.
Yeah.
And where women had to close off their hearts, had to disassociate, had to focus mostly, and they didn't have the agency to be able to change things for
Hmm.
other women. And when you're in that amount of helplessness, you find a way to cope. Your body finds a way to get through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you might say something like she deserved that,
Damn.
right? Or she had it coming. Or maybe she shouldn't have done that then.
Wow. But also, like, if you look at that generation as well, like I look at my grandma's generation, they didn't have social media, they didn't have time to be curious. Like, they used to literally follow what the news said. The 9 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock news, whatever it was. Nobody questioned what the news was showing. They never quite like questioned like the other side of the other story. They just followed the rules, like you're saying.
Hmm.
So it's only now we are more curious than ever before, and we're questioning things. We are seeing other sides on social media, and there's a lot of things that have happened in society. Like I remember, not to go off tangent, but there was a miners' strike in England in like the 80s. It was 80s or 70s. They showed that the miners were attacking the police, but they never showed the police were attacking the miners. So again, a whole gender. No, everyone just believed that the miners were bad. It's only like I think 10 years later or 20 years later they put out a documentary apologizing to the miners. So again,
Mm.
they literally followed what they saw on TV. That's all they knew. TV, we could trust in the papers, we could trust everything around us, but they never questioned it.
Yeah.
And I think we've
Yeah.
evolved as a society where we question everything now. We're curious. We see something on social media, it'll be different sides of different stories, but they didn't have that
Yeah.
growing up, which then didn't lead them to be curious like the way we are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a few more questions for you. Can you tell us about your program Born Wild?
Mm. Ooh, born wild. So, you know, I a few years ago, my daughter like walked in on me dancing. So I'm an embodiment teacher, and so I do a lot of work with meditative movement, and it's such a beloved part of what I do, and it's such a huge part of my own personal practice, to connect to myself spiritually, to ground myself, to work through the emotions that are up in my system or the activation energy, so that I can really it serves as a healing process, but it also serves as a way that I find my center of like who I am and who I want to operate out of, not as a mind thing, but as a like, oh, I've clicked in. Okay, I've clicked into her. It's like how I kind of turn on and up the volume on my authenticity over time. So the somatic portion is very, very dear to me because it's been such a close part of my practice for really the past 6 or 7 years, but especially, and it's been there since I was a performer, truly. It's just when I was a performer, I was using those practices as a way to get into my body so I could go out and perform, not as a way to heal myself. So I could kind of extract from my sensitivity and my emotional availability, not as a way to actually heal. And that has shifted. And now I use those same practices to heal. But the reason I say that is because when you're asking about Born Wild, a few years ago when my daughter was little, maybe she was 5, I want to say, she walked in on me dancing, and and I didn't realize that she had like I only saw her leaving, and I was like, oh, because I don't usually dance in front of her. I mean, we do
Oh.
fun dancing, but not like sensual movement or I hadn't done that in front of her. So she walked in, and I saw her leaving, and I was like, oh. And then later that night she was talking about how she likes to put on makeup and be a princess. And do you like to wear makeup? And I said, I do, and here's why, but I also can do it without, and here's like my take on it. And we were just talking about it, and then she said out of the blue, Mama, do you know when I think you're most beautiful? And I said, uh-oh, like, okay, here we go. And she was like, when you are dancing, like you were born wild, is what she said. And I mean, she was
Hmm.
so little at the time. And I just like my mouth hung open because I was like, oh, I cannot believe you just like, what a thing to say. And maybe a year after that, I decided to trademark Born Wild. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to use this, but this has to be trademarked. And then
Oh.
over the past year, and as I've been in more and more in sacred feminine work and working with archetype, the archetype of the wild woman has felt very dear to me. And when I really looked back on my journey, she's been with me the whole time. There's this part of me that has always been so intense and sensitive
Hmm.
and turned on by life and wanting to go all the way, balls to the wall, who is just like loves so hard and so deep and so big. And I think when I was performing, I had permission to be in her energy, you know? And
Oh.
I talk about this as being the wild daughter that kind of grows up alongside the good girl. And in some of my work, I call this the sacred rebel too. It's this energy that is basically all that is, we are taught is not acceptable
Mm.
in the framework of the good girl. And so it goes underground. It gets suppressed in the body. It gets suppressed in our awareness, in our conscious awareness of our identity and who we are. But she can't be suppressed.
Mm.
So she actually will rise up at certain parts of our journey. And a lot of times she will show up in rage or a Shakti awakening or a sexual awakening, or she will show up as creative, like eros or things coming through when we have hit a point of something is about to expand, or you've hit a certain amount of alignment and something's about to expand, or something needs to shift in your life. So I like to think of her as she's kind of this guide in our feminine journey that will show up when we're on a threshold.
Mm.
And she came to me last year as I was about to hold a wild woman retreat, because I was leading women through this year-long process of an archetypal journey. And there were 2 retreats involved. And one of them was in Costa Rica. And I'm about to go again to lead the second one. Now it's a standalone retreat. It's not a part of a larger program. But right before I was about to lead it, I was not realizing it, but I was good girling in a really big and painful way in my life. And I was about to lead this good girl retreat. Or this, no, not good girl retreat. That's funny that I just Freudian slipped that though, because it would have been a good girler version of the retreat had this not happened. But I remember I was going to a friend's wedding right beforehand, and I was staying in Asheville and on a mountain. And right as I was about to go leave this wild woman retreat, I woke up that morning, and it's like I had an awareness immediately as I woke up that the way I had been operating like could not go on. Like the way I had been good girling was like the antithesis of the healing that I had been doing up until that point. It was sort of like I like to think of it as like the butterflies, like the butterfly came online as the caterpillar was dying in my body. And I woke up with so much rage in my body. And literally at the same moment, the mountain started shaking uncontrollably. It was the first earthquake I had ever been in. And the earthquake is the archetypal symbol of the wild woman, as is lightning, as is like she is known as she is a shifting force. So if you think of it, it's like she's a force of nature. She's a force of nature. She's very primal, and that energy shook me awake. And I remember feeling so much rage and grief in my body. And I put on a song and I had my earbuds in, and I was like trying not to wake up all the other people in the house with the screaming and the wailing that wanted to come out of my body. Not screaming, more wailing, more like deep noises. But I was using all the tools I had to stay in the pleasure of it, to stay in the flow of it, to alchemize whatever energy was arising. And I just knew as soon as I was done dancing that I had to make some different decisions in my life and how I was showing up. And that I could not keep going on the way I was if I wanted to grow and really listen to myself and the vision that I had. And so she came up to kind of move things in a different direction than they had been going. And I like to think of her, when I think back, I'm like, every threshold I've been on where there was a huge shift, she has shown up. She showed up before that too, when I was younger and in the throes of motherhood. You know, she showed up as me screaming into pillows in like the closet and stomping and being like, I can't do this anymore, because I was really in over my head. And that's right around the time I started discovering embodiment and sacred feminine work.
Wow.
And where I started having a Shakti awakening. So
Wow.
she kind of shows up at thresholds for me. It's time for things to my journey. And over the past year, I was going through some really difficult things. And I was also reading this incredible book at the time called The Night House, which talks about myth and storytelling over millennia that mothers have handed down to their daughters that basically gives this archetypal map for the wild daughter. Basically taught women. It was done in like weaving rooms, and
Wow.
like these stories were told at bedtime and in weaving rooms, like outside of the patriarchal gaze. And there was so much symbolism in them. And the framing of this is they're all like their own little mystery school, but they hold these really clear maps for women to start to decode and understand how to hold on to their authenticity in a patriarchal overculture, how
Wow.
to find themselves in a culture that is determined to take their sovereignty, their body, their intelligence, their brilliance, their soul. Like, how do you hold on to yourself? So, this archetypal map, like, there was enough in her books about this that I started to go, wait, that matches this in my journey, and that in my journey, and this in my, and then it also matches that in 10 different clients' journeys that I've had, which is how
Wow.
I've always done the work. Is I can start to see, because I've worked with so many women at this point, how these patterns line up. And a whole archetypal map that was inspired by this book
Wow.
helped me see. And then I started to see, oh yes, it covers this, but there's also this piece, and there's that piece, and there's this piece that it's not speaking about but is named in this story and that story. And so I started to create this whole archetypal map. Not create it, but like synthesize, I think I would say. It's not I was creating this map exists, but I was like seeing it more clearly.
Yeah.
And the synthesis of it was coming together. And then I started to go, oh, this is like a map of the journey of the good girl shifting into this place of like over the entire course of the journey into a medicine holder in untamed
Wow.
sovereignty. And that all of us have the potential to move through this map, and we're all at different places in the map. Um, and I could just see it all so clearly. So I was like, oh, this is the born wild map. Like, this is the
Mm.
map of the wild daughter. This is how women start to heal from patriarchy. And this is also taken from having, how many mentors at this point? Probably 15 different mentors, and everything that I have um, seen in my own journey, and then also how I've mentored others. So there's like this synthesis of information that has come through, and it maps almost identically to the different phases of metamorphosis. And it almost maps
Wow.
identically to the alchemical journey as well.
Wow.
So it's just been wild to see this all more clearly and be able to go, oh, you're here. Because if you're in
Mm.
this house, right, and in the night house, I'm trying to remember this author's name. I'll have to put it in I'll send it to you for the notes because
I
I'm
can put
having
them in the
trouble
show
remembering right
notes.
now, but she's fantastic. I want to make sure I credit her because her work is so powerful. And she introduced this concept to me of like a wild daughter map and the different rights that exist in different places. But I also saw, just from watching so many different women, what works in different houses and what doesn't. And
Mm.
that the medicine in one house is not the medicine for the other house. And if you
Yeah.
try to bring it in at a different, like, it's not the right medicine. So it's just been really cool. I'm leading women through the first round of that right now. We're halfway through. And what I keep hearing from them is just like, Beth, I don't know what shifted in you, but this is, this is different. Like, you are different.
Mm.
And I feel that because I think this past year has humbled me so much in the best ways, and the most difficult ways, but in the best ways. And me really getting, like, me really understanding the invitation of
Mm.
what I'm actually up to. Um, and the potency of it, and that it's not about me anymore. And it's not about me being centered or me being the one who delivers this, that this is so much bigger. And that I feel really lucky to have uncovered some part of the leg of the journey that helps women make sense of this. Because if they have the map, we have an orientation point always.
Yeah.
And I think the scariest part is where I feel like I don't know what to orient to. Where am I? What is happening? How is this explicable right
Mm.
now? Because when we're in a change process, it's so disorienting. We don't
Yeah.
understand what's happening until we're out of it. And so
Yeah.
sometimes just having a map and a guide or somebody holding a lantern and going like, you're not alone. And I know you have to feel everything and this is yours to feel and no one else can do it for you. But like, just so you know, you're right on time. And like,
Mm.
here's where you are. And this all makes sense can just be enough for us to go, oh, I'm not like okay, because it just feels like my whole world is falling apart. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that makes sense with where you are, can be, and like, who's the angel team that can help lead you through this part? Who's that, you
Wow.
don't need to do it alone.
Yeah. Wow.
Um,
It's so powerful. I just want to say, and when you were saying you don't know where this is coming from, but this is your ancestors' medicine. It's arrived through your
It
DNA,
is. Well, that was a
right?
huge part of it. That
Yeah.
actually is a big part of it is when I started doing ancestral work, which happened in one of the phases of the journey, which is called the wild terrain or the dark woods or the wild wood, where basically everything you thought you knew, even after all the healing, you have to be initiated. The healing's
Oof.
not enough. There's an initiation. And that has to reclaim sovereignty.
Mm.
You have to find your own way through
Oof.
without the usual buffers and reaching and coping strategies. You have to find your own way through. And that is where I found like the deepest medicine that I've ever experienced. And it's also where I started leaning on spiritual support and ancestral support more
Mm.
because I couldn't do it in the ways that I had done it before. That became unavailable, through the nature of being initiated. I could not grasp to what I had been grasping to. Things fell away that had been the things I held on to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the initiation is a piece of it. And healing is not enough. There is a point where if we are going to be in our full sovereignty and power and actually pass that back to others, we have to be on our own journey. That's just us. We can be supported during that time, but we're not orienting to someone else's version. We're orienting to our own truth above
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I love that. And where can my listeners find your work?
Um, well, I am working on a quiz for the wild I'm like very close to having up a quiz that helps you determine which house you are in the
Ooh.
wild daughter journey. But I also have a quiz. You can find me at bethclaytoncoaching.com or Beth Clayton Coach on Instagram. But if you go there, you will find my archetypal quiz that will help you determine your top 3 good girl archetypes. And if you can understand your top 3, what happens then is that you're going to have a much clearer picture on what medicine is most important for the reclamation of what I call your sacred rebel or your wild daughter, because each one needs something slightly different. Like I said, we're all formed in different ways. We need different things at different times in our journey. So that helps you understand how to reclaim and embody that medicine in a way that's going to get you closer to what you actually want, because you're going to understand how this conditioning has been uniquely holding you back, both in your nervous system and in how you are living.
Oh, I love that. We will put that in the show notes. So when it's ready, let me know. We'll add it in there. That's not a problem.
Great.
And what are you most grateful for? That's what I want to ask you.
Mm. I am just so grateful I get to be this person in this life, with so much love around me. And I love being me.
Mm.
Sometimes I think I've had the thought, this is the best one yet. Like, this is the best life yet. I get to do really, really cool shit. And I get to create freely. And I get to love hard. And so I'm so grateful for the people I have around me and my children and my husband. But I also am so grateful that I get to be Beth and
Mm.
experience life as her this time.
Oh, I love that. And what shines your inner light?
Is anytime I am like listening to my body and what's moving through it. So when I'm dancing, when I'm singing, when I'm storytelling, like anytime I'm allowing the energy to move out in the way the energy wants to move is when I feel that light the most. When I'm not in my mind and when I'm just allowing things to move and flow as they want to.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Beth, for being on the show and just sharing your wisdom with us and truly coming back home to yourself, because if you didn't, so many women would be missing out on your wisdom and your medicine.
Thank you so much, Gerds. This was so fun.
Wow, what an amazing interview with Beth. It's so interesting how so many of us don't know how to trust from within. And if we can't trust from within, we don't know how to trust our bodies. But when we learn to trust our bodies, then it's so easy to trust the medicine that is pouring through us and what we're here to birth into this world. Now, if you're interested in Beth's work, visit her website, and all the information about Beth is in our show notes below. Unfortunately, that's the end of the show. Before I leave, I want to leave you with this quote. We have to stop being good girls if we want to be free women. That's a quote by Thea Sky. Now, if you really want to liberate your mind, body and spirit from patriarchal people pleasing, then visit my website at www.gerdshundel.com. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy, stay lit.
Lit.